That is such a valuable piece of advice there.
These are the sorts of things that we should talk about right in the first 5 minutes of the podcast.
Started giving people free quotes. Isn't sunshine and rainbows, and isn't, everyone sees you doing so well.
For just being a solo
The
operator.
change in mindset makes a massive difference.
Welcome to Aussie Lawn Stars.
Welcome to the dungeon again, Benny. How you doing?
G'day, Gary. Thanks for having me, pal.
It's last minute catch up, but I think we should start with announcing our beverage of choice for the evening.
Beverage of choice? I've got coffee and water.
I've got a choc mint hot chocolate.
Ooh, nice. You know what? This is super random. Do you remember Ovaltine?
Yeah, used to love it.
So as a kid, I remember having it, and randomly I just opened up the pantry one day and I was like, "Oh, Vicky, what's this?" And the kids were like, "What's that?" And I was like, "It's like Milo." And they're like, "The tin is orange." And I'm like, "It's cool. Just try it."
I remember when my parents introduced me to Milo, and then we got Ovaltine, and I'm like, "Oh man, Ovaltine is so much better than Milo."
Yeah, well, how it started was, the little packets?
Yeah.
With the little, I don't know, I guess they're just little bites of Ovaltine.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I've seen them around. I can't say that I'm that much of a fan of the packets, though. I much prefer the drink.
Yeah, I think, I just drink so much coffee that I don't take that much time to drink anything else. And so, when I saw the little treats, I was like, yeah. And then, I don't know, just some of that stuff just reminds you of your childhood.
I've been pulling back on the coffee at the moment. So my hot chocolate, no coffee in it. Normally I like to do a mocha, but I've found the extra caffeine has a massive diuretic effect. So it's just like, Ben, we might be recording, but I got to go.
Yeah, well, in fact, I saw on LMCA someone bought, it was Mark Ladaway. He got a 99-cent 2-liter iced coffee.
That was 33 cents, actually. I saw that too.
All right. Well, the amount of people in there that made comments about having to go to the toilet afterwards, and I was like, dudes, it's just milk.
Yeah.
So
milk with flavour.
Yeah. Or in date that day or something.
Yeah, I think it was the same date. So he had to drink it all that afternoon.
Oh, boy. Well, we'll find out next week how he went.
Yeah, well, I can imagine, given that he only does roadside strips, he's got nowhere to hide. That sounds like a BJ Poo story, that one.
Oh, man. See, I thought because I was on a podcast without BJ today that maybe I could skip through some of that, but it just, I don't know, maybe it's me.
You attract the best, bring out the best.
Shit, right?
Yeah. Efficiency is the thing that rules a business and the decisions you make as a small business owner. Right Mowers give you the options in their product lineup to match efficiency with size, fuel usage, and the type of jobs you want to target, from catching to mulching or side discharge, from roadside verges to acreages, and manicured lawns to 6 feet tall and super long. I've been using the Right Stander I 42-inch with a Catch Pro for manicured areas and the Stander ZK61 to maximise productivity for large open acreage mowing. If you need to replace your push mower, try the 32-inch Stander B. If you have more open access to residential properties, there's a 42 through to 48-inch option that suits you. And if you want to enter the acreage market, the 52, 61 and 72-inch machines have choices in engine size and model type to suit the work you want it to do. Right Standards go the distance, saving you time and money season after season. Hey, Ben, I've wanted to go through some topics because I don't normally do topics. I normally just do interviews.
Yep.
And so I've put together a top 5, but this is where it's going to be interesting because this top 5, I bet you don't agree with me on it.
Look, possibly. Look, you and I, we talk, we discuss some things, and there's a lot of stuff that we don't agree on. It's not like a handshake agreement where we're like, yeah, you know what, you're completely right. But a lot of the time I've found we can always be like, oh, I can understand that line of thought, or, it's like you sort of agree, but yes, you could veer a different way here and there. But I think that's good, and I think that's good content for people to listen to as well.
I think it's a bit like the famous debate in LMCA, catch versus mulch. And, that creates massive divide. But I think we can both agree that there's a place for both.
Yeah, and I mean that particular debate, like it, you sort of nailed that on the head. Like there is a place for both, and even in one person's business, you don't have to do one or the other. It's great if you have a business that you can do one or the other.
Yeah.
And I think that's important for people to know as well. So, but all of these topics are interesting to just get different views of
Yeah.
how different businesses are doing it in different markets. And so
Yeah.
anyway, I'm excited to see what you came up with.
Yeah. Well, before we jump into the first one, and we'll announce that, with mulch first catch, I made my business around mulching. But
Yeah.
at some point in the last little while, I was like, oh, maybe I should get a Catch Pro.
Mm-hmm.
So I pinged you and I got a Catch Pro for my walker. And then I was like, oh, no, I don't really find the Catch Pros that great on the walker. But more recently, I've been running the Catch Pro on the right stand-up eye 42-inch machine. And I'm just in the process at the moment of getting that sorted with a cover. So bought the cover off here, and I'm going to get my brother to put a couple of nut certs on the top of the Catch Pro so that I can just use wing nuts to hold the cover and rip it back off whenever I don't need it.
Yes, and you can get nutserts from Bunnings. The only thing is that they're circle ones, so you got to make sure that when you put the hole in, it's like tight and flush hole.
Yeah.
The nutserts that we use are hex, and you can't drill that hole. So
Yeah.
we use the hex ones because they'll never turn.
Yep.
But if they do turn, you just have to grab a pair of pliers and hold the nutsert.
Yeah. Well, my brother's a bit of an engineering guy, so whatever he does, I told him what size I want, and he's going to sort it out for me. So
Yeah, yep.
should be
No, but
good.
I mean, look, same thing. Like I don't mow professionally anymore.
Yeah.
And I've got a Catch Pro.
Mm.
And I mow my whole yard with the Catch Pro, and I've got a paddock neighboring me, and I almost never use sometimes I use the Catch Pro and run a few lines on my boundary,
Yeah.
but it's the same thing. Like we have people that buy catches for one client, one job.
Yeah.
It's $1,000.
Yep.
It's $1,000 to buy a Catch Pro, and if you can satisfy that one client, and it's worth it, then so be it.
Yeah. And that client doesn't have to be a massive client to make it worth it.
Yeah,
But,
look, I still think if you want to, like, when you actually want to get amongst the debate, I know I can swing both ways. Like, I can be neutral and say, oh, whatever, but if I, wanted to, or could even be bothered, pushing it again and again and again, I could go all day of why, catching, I think, is a great business model.
yeah,
But look,
for sure.
surely we're not getting into that now.
No, we need to get into the topics, but I want to see you converted with a robot mower soon.
Sorry?
I want to see you converted from full catching to a robot mower soon. See the benefits of that.
Mate, to be honest, like I've had my Segway in my backyard for just over a week.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
I really love it. Like I couldn't have had it in my yard a month ago. I had to actually do some works to my yard, and I didn't do it for the robot. But the works that I did, it just made it perfect, a perfect setup. And I'll tell you what's funny about it. Vicky didn't give a crap about it when I got it. And the twins were all right. Like they're 11. They're kind of like, oh, all right. But my youngest daughter she's just looking at it. She's like, Dad, I still think you're going to need to mow. Like, because that's all they ever see me do is just mow the yard, you know.
Yep.
And yeah, it was about 6 or 7 days later. Nellie finally looks over at me and she's like, you know what, Dad? The grass is already mowed. So,
Yep.
yeah, I mean, I still don't think it's, you know, I still only think it's a tiny percentage in the market, but where it fits, I think it fits well.
Yeah. I do think there's a place for them, but I've been playing with them for a couple of years now, and the place for robots is limited. So they've got to meet a very stringent criteria to be worth using.
Yeah, and I still think if you're a contractor that was looking to have robots set up in your business, I still think you've really got to go the extra mile getting your head around that concept. I do think if you're just a consumer, a homeowner, that and you want to put one in your yard and just pay for it or whatever it is, then you know you kind of have that like on-site learning experience all the time. Whereas
Yeah, that's right.
I do think when you're rocking up to a property and you install one, if you kind of like I know with when I installed mine, it wouldn't go home properly because I didn't
Yeah.
have its home perfectly level.
Yep.
It looked perfectly level, but it just wasn't, you know. And it
Yeah.
wasn't until hours later that I knew that. So I think that
Yeah.
there's going to be a lot of learning curves there for anyone who's using them.
Definitely.
But the Segway Navimo, you know, look, people can call me biased now. That's cool because I'm selling them.
Yep.
But you know, that's the only one I can comment on. So,
Yeah.
and it took, you know, the guys over there to give me the deal, and they said, you know what, Ben, I think you can end up being okay with this, and
Yeah.
you know, we all need to try new stuff. So I went with it.
Yeah. And I think you'll find if you look around at different robot mowers, the Segway is one of the easiest ones to actually work with.
Yeah, well, look, I don't know. Look, I can say 100% that I wouldn't be messing with any cables under any circumstances. So
Yep.
if you know if there's areas where that's what's needed, I just know me personally, I ain't messing with that.
Yeah.
And then you know, what are we naming brands or are we just?
Yeah, we can brand drop. That's cool.
So look, I'm not super educated on all of this, but does the Crest one have just like one master station?
Yeah, so the Crest one will
satellite
have a
thing?
station that works for, say, the south side of Brisbane or the east side of Brisbane, and that'll cover your area.
Yeah, so I just don't understand. Like, does that mean someone has to have one in your area for you to be able to get one?
It can do, but what you'll find is that majority of Sydney is now set up with Crest base stations, so that there's not a lot of areas in Sydney that you can't install one already.
I mean, that's great for Sydney, right?
Yeah, I don't know what with Brisbane. I think Brisbane's heading the same direction, but I
Yep.
haven't had a chat to Jason lately to see what he's doing.
It's just an odd setup to me, that's all. Like,
Yeah,
I know with, you know, the Navimo, and like I was learning straight on the spot, and it's like you just stick this thing in the ground where it can see,
yeah,
and then you just cruise around like you're on a little video game,
yep,
and you're done and dusted. It's
yeah.
cool, and if you
It
coop it,
is.
you can just go back, you just delete it and do it again.
Yeah, the Navimo is very user friendly. It's really easy for even Ben to learn how to use
Hey,
it. So
that's
yeah.
not nice. No,
No,
but I know what
it's
you
not
mean.
nice.
I
But
know what you mean.
while we're not being nice, we need to start having some debate here. So
Okay.
the topics that I've jotted down here is the top 5 advice for people in lawn care or people starting lawn care.
So not people already doing lawn care, I guess.
Well, look, it'll cover both because some of the topics that we get into, once you get into it, you go, well, that applies to somebody who's already doing it and wanting to upgrade or whatever. But let's start with the first topic and people work that out as they go.
Sure. And I guess I will too, right?
Yeah. Well, I'll throw you in the deep end. We'll see how you cope. So the first piece of advice I've put down here, and I bet you will be different on this, is learn from the people who are already doing it, and particularly individual pros, so professionals, people who claim they're all that, aren't always as valuable as getting crowd advice and sourcing your crowd advice from places like LMCA.
Yeah, look, so we're talking about, so someone looking to start up, or someone that's maybe looking to improve their business,
Yep.
or maybe go in a new direction or something, and is that what we're
Yeah.
talking
So
about?
I would say this very specifically relates to people who are just starting up, but it will also relate to people who are changing direction or looking to get a new tool or looking to change from residential to commercial. All those
A-
questions that we
And
have.
we're talking about where they're seeking their advice from.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Um,
the tip is learn from the people who are already doing what you want to do.
well, look, I agree with that, but I think probably what is more important is probably learning from the people that are doing exactly what it is that you are wanting to do.
Yeah.
So if you're looking to start up a new mowing business, and you're just going to, limit yourself to residential and say, like, I just want to, do that, then I certainly think you're better off, looking at YouTube videos or Instagram content or podcasts, anything that relates to that specific, you know, section that it is that you want to, succeed in.
Yeah, you're trying to win me over by saying listen to podcasts there, but I know you're a bit tricky. I'm going to say they're going to get better advice if they go to a forum, if they go to a group and they ask, 1,000 people or 7,000 people.
Well, look, I love LMCA, and I do think that there's excellent content on there and excellent advice.
Yep.
The only thing is that, like, I just know, because I've been there for so long.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't ever say that there's content or advice on there that's just straight up bad, but you kind of learn once you've been there for a while. You kind of learn from people like, oh, okay, this person isn't really doing what they're saying or preaching, or
True.
you kind of find out things later on, like, oh, I remember, and I just know, like, there's been people on there who've had great advice or seemed like good advice,
Yeah.
and then, maybe 12 months or 18 months down the line, it's like they've completely switched to something else, and you can tell what it was
Yeah.
that they were doing initially didn't work. And
I'm thinking
then,
you could probably name people that you're thinking of about that.
look, I'm not even talking, with one person necessarily in mind. It's
Yeah.
just that if you're looking to start out, you really got to take a few other things into account, which I'm not sure that everyone else is taking into account. So if
Yeah.
you start a business in Brisbane, it's going to be significantly different to starting a business in Melbourne.
Yep.
And this is where I start to get really passionate and pissed off, realistically, because you have all your YouTubers, and you have your Instagram, Facebook, your podcast. There's a plethora of information now on a number of different platforms.
Yeah.
And some people will claim that, okay, this is the best information that I can give you, and you have to do this, this, and this.
Yes.
And that is correct in some ways, but in some ways it's just never going to apply.
So
So
that's true of getting the group to answer or getting it from an individual, right? So if you go to LMCA or Greg's group and you say, hey, I want to get advice on cutting a particular type of grass, you'll find there's some Queenslanders in there and they know everything. But if you go and you filter through and you go, well, I'm not in Queensland, I don't want to know about cutting Queensland cooch. So then you can target the question more specifically to a certain type of grass that you need answers on.
Yeah, absolutely. You can do that. Yeah.
In LMCA, you're going to get people that are in Queensland who are going to give you wrong advice, and you're going to get people in Victoria who are going to give you wrong advice, and then you get the New South Walesmen who will give you the right advice. But if you go to an individual, so say you go to Martin from Mowing and Growing, or you go to Clint from Camden Gardens, or Dan the Mowing Mentor, and you ask them for advice, and I'm going to pick on those guys because they're famous and they've left themselves open for that.
Yep.
There's a good chance that their advice will be really good for them and really good for some other people, but not good for everyone.
Yeah, and it's like we can pick on them, but it's the same with everyone. It's the same with Gary Ashton. It's the same with Ben from Catch Pro. It's the same with the homie from TBL. The way that those people or us or whoever it is doing something in one particular state or market, it just is not always going to transfer to somewhere else.
And this
So
is why I like going to LMCA.
yeah, and I think look, I still think it's a great place. Like I get people ring me up all day long, and they're asking about different mowers or if the Catch Pro is going to suit their business, and
Yeah.
I give them as much information as I can possibly give, but I always end up asking the question, "Oh, are you on social media at all, or are you on LMCA?" And quite often they're not on LMCA, and you can say to them, "Hey, if you're um, if you're in South Australia and you're relocating to the Gold Coast, you just put the post up. Hey, everyone, I had a business down here and now I'm moving to the Gold Coast. Is there anyone locally that, knows the best mower dealer or knows whatever it is?"
Yeah.
So it's still, I'm not saying that LMCA is not a great place to get information,
Yeah.
but I do think getting information in general, I don't know that you can ever look at one, so I'm probably more talking about one particular business rather, like you're sort of talking
Yeah.
about, like a whole, bunch of people.
Yeah.
And
Pretty
I
much.
think that's good advice.
Yep. And I look at it when people come to me, because I do this podcast, I get questions directed at me. People come to me and ask me for advice, and it feels good to pretend I've got all the answers. But when I'm talking to somebody from South Australia and they're trying to earn $40 an hour, and I'm like, man, you can do better. And it's like, I know they can do better, but I'm like, hey, I know somebody in South Australia, Matt Palfrey. Go and talk to him.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that's good, but yeah, it's the same thing too. Like when you hear people talking about pricing, I think there's probably a few things that we could really touch on here. So pricing is the number one thing, and you and I should know by now that what we can get in capital cities is not necessarily what is reflective in some rural towns, small towns.
For sure. Yeah.
Cutting heights is another one that it really pisses me off,
Yep.
because if you're in far north Queensland, you're not cutting grass the same way that you are almost anywhere else in Australia.
Yeah.
And it can be I think it hurts businesses when they're told, like, okay, you need to be cutting here, or you need to be doing this, and you need to be doing that. I mean, I've been a culprit of it myself
Yeah.
by sort of, mentioning things like, okay, when it gets to 16 degrees at night, that's when it's starting to shut off, and you got to be a little careful about how aggressive you're cutting it. I
Yep.
mean, that happens. Like we're in June now. That
Yeah.
only started happening last week in Brisbane.
Yeah. We've
And
been in single
how
digits for the last month.
how far south are you from where I am?
So I'm
Yeah.
Newcastle, which is close to Sydney.
Yep. So
So
that's
I'm
like 8 hour
halfway
drive.
between Brisbane and Melbourne, which means that we get cooler weather than Brisbane quite noticeably. So we've had single digits for the last 3 or 4 weeks where it gets down below 10 degrees overnight.
Yep. See, that's what I mean. It's already. So what's that? Is that like an 8-hour drive or something?
Yeah, it's pretty close to 8 hours actually from here to you.
Yeah. So an 8-hour drive, geographically, instantly changes, so much about how you would run your business.
Yeah. I know one of the things that comes up there, and then we're going to move on to the next topic.
Already?
For 10 years, I mulched 99% of what I did, and I had the occasional little area where I'm going, oh, that doesn't mulch quite so well. What is going on there? And I'd look at it and go, oh, that's a bit of couch grass. And it's like a little corner of the yard of of where I'm mowing, and then back to mowing real grass again. And then I hear you and BJ talking about mowing Queensland couch and how horrible it is to mulch it or to cut it when like using gator blades, anything like that.
To do anything with, really, right?
And it's like, is there a place where you actually have whole yards that are all couch? Because I don't see it around here.
Oh, mate, there's cooch everywhere here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a
Oh, yeah.
massive difference between where you are and where I am. And there's countless other differences too. But that's one of the ones which really struck me when I was looking at that whole debate, mulch versus catch, and going, you know what? I really don't have enough couch to worry about it.
Yeah, and I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, I know my cousin, he always he doesn't catch or mulch, he just side throws.
Yeah.
But, he's a big residential guy, like comes across lots and lots of different
Yeah.
lawns, shapes, sizes, varieties, all of this stuff. And he'll just say straight up, like, catching is way too much effort and mulching is just not effective at all. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you say that you spend 10 years, 99% mulching.
Yeah.
I mean, I spent 15 years just side throwing. Anytime
Yeah.
I used a push mower, we were catching.
Yep.
But until the Catch Pro it came out, your only option was a walker,
Yeah. Pretty much.
and I could never afford one. So,
Yep.
I used to call it strategic mowing. When I was side throwing, because you'd be
Yep.
hitting lines everywhere to make sure that you just didn't throw it, in
Yeah.
all the
Yep. Make sure that it's even.
and that like after like 6 or 7 services at one place, you'd see grass just heaped up under the hedges.
Yep.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. So, Ben, topic number 2 that I've got here, and I know this is going to be controversial. Startup, when you're starting a business, start with the right gear, the right setup, and a few leads to make sure you've got customers when you start rather than starting with nothing.
look, it's always, man, it's always better to start with the right gear. But as someone who's been like, an unofficial ambassador,
Yep.
for lots of, different companies and stuff, even I can say myself that a lot of the times, even though the advice that is being given is not malicious or lying or anything like that, it's just that it's the same thing. It needs to suit that business.
Yeah.
And I mean, look, even I myself have felt bad. We plug the 32V ride or the 32B, as really great machines that you can fit through gates and you can do this and that and everything like that.
Yeah.
And it's all true, but it sometimes you feel bad when someone starts a business and they're like, I've seen that and I've heard
Yeah.
that that's the best thing to get.
Yep.
And I'm not saying it's not the best thing to get, but it doesn't suit every business.
Yeah. So I guess the advice is quite generalized, right? So start with the right gear and some leads already. It is very generalized. There's going to be a lot of specific circumstances where the right gear looks different for different people. So it does come back onto the person asking the question to make sure they know what they need, make sure that they've got the right gear. And it also comes back to, and I've heard you say it numerous times, and I know when I started, it was a case of going, well, you buy what you can afford. It's not like everybody has, and I know your topic recently, for people who haven't listened to it, go and listen to Skull Sessions, talking about the different price startups. So if you're buying the right gear, is it the $5,000 startup that's going to get you the right gear? Is it the $50,000 startup that's going to get you the right gear?
Well, I was still amazed by that because, BJ and I don't really do a lot of research for our shows anymore.
Yeah.
Well, we had to in that case. And even then, we still did a pretty half-assed effort. I think we focused on the $5,000 one and then kind of freestyled the rest.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, look, let's face it, not everyone, we talked about $5,000 and, I guess we were hoping that at least they had a vehicle. There's
Had a vehicle already.
some people that don't even have a suitable vehicle.
We've seen a number of people in LMCA and people around my hometown even that run around with a bicycle with a trailer. A lot of people have been asking about which brand of battery tool to buy, and I don't like to recommend one brand of battery for everyone or every situation. Dealer support and access to parts and service all play a big role in that decision. Some brands have better tools for specific needs or each product category. I've been using a variety of brands, and I endeavour to provide unbiased interviews on Aussie Lawn Stars with as many of those product brands as possible. I reached out to Ego Power Plus through the podcast because of how Barry supports the industry and Ego owners. Barry has impressed me with his loyalty to customers in providing support and listening to the needs of the industry, which has resulted in a full lineup of new commercial tools landing in Australia over the last 12 months that has positioned Ego as a leader in the commercial tool space for outdoor power equipment. Visit egopowerplus.com.au to see if they have the tools you need today.
I don't know. Maybe this is controversial, but I just don't see that as a real business.
Yeah. And there's guys out there who will disagree with you, but I agree, right? And what do we label as a real business? Are we talking cowboys included?
Well, that's a difficult topic too. Like, you can, the whole being a real business, I mean, look, I operated for years and years and years as a credit, and I'm not telling people to be like me in any way, shape, or form. But
Yep.
for a long time, I operated. I don't even know if I had a business. I probably had a registered business name, but I didn't. I literally didn't do anything else properly except for mowing a lawn is what I did properly.
Yeah.
So the that whole cowboy and real business debate, it's another one of those really shady areas where I think first and foremost though, if you do want to earn money and you're not just doing it to get some beer money and you're not doing it as a lifestyle thing, then you do need to be set up as a real business.
Yeah.
And I think obviously you got to be insured, you got to have a business name. People are going to laugh at me, but I love, like, when I see the businesses out there without uniforms, I'm always kind of like, like I'm not saying that they're not successful, they can't be successful, but it's just
Yeah.
always one of those things where, like, you so much, like, if you rock up to a job and someone's getting 3 or 4 quotes, when it comes down to, if you've got 4 quotes there, everyone's charged a similar amount.
Yep.
Some of these things really do matter.
Well, let's face it, this is going to come up time and time again too. If you have 4 people that can all cut grass, one of them's driving around a 1980s Hilux, one of them's driving around a BMW X5 with a trailer, another person turns up with his Dodge Ram, and somebody else turns up with a truck that's got all the gear on the truck and the signage. Which one are you going to pick?
Well, look, I don't know if it's as much about the vehicle as it is about Yeah, I don't know. I yeah, I
I
don't
think,
know if it's as much about the vehicle, Gaz, as look, the equipment I think matters, but if the customer isn't educated, then they probably don't know anyway, right?
well, I hear a lot of people worried that if their vehicle's too shiny, they'll lose customers because the customers are sitting there going, "Oh, you're making too much money." And my retort for that is, if you've got the wrong customers, if they're going to reject you because you're making good money.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, guys, that is a tough one. Like I don't know. I don't even know how to answer it. Like I remember when, we had some renovations done here and we had like 3 or 4 chippies come.
Yep.
We kind of went with the person who spoke to us the nicest
Yeah.
and the person who got back to us the quickest.
Yeah.
So like pretty much everyone said like, no worries, I can have a quote to you in 24 hours.
So
Half of
you
them
know who
did
you
it.
sound like?
Oh no.
Jim Penman.
Really?
Person who got back to us the quickest and spoke to us the nicest. That is a Jim's franchise motto.
Well, there you go. And I mean, that was just how we felt comfortable making the decision. I actually felt bad for all of them because
Yeah.
none of them were jerks. I just think one of them probably wasn't probably wasn't as natural for him to be like, oh, we could do this or you could suggest this and, things like
Yeah.
that. Um, but it is kind of one of those things that, it does help the customer feel comfortable with you. And it's unfortunate that, maybe if you're shy or maybe, you let your work speak for itself. If they haven't seen that work and they don't know, then they go to the next thing.
Yeah.
So it was exactly the same with me. Like when I was, going out and getting our first contracts, the amount of times that I got rejected and said like, well, you've never done anything like this before. And I'm like, I know,
Yep.
it's because none of you will let me do it. And
Yep.
I just started lying and saying like, oh yeah, we do this site, rah, rah, and obviously we didn't get sussed out. And I landed an awesome contract that was changed my life.
Yeah. That's it. So
Um,
I guess that's a good segue on to the next topic. So
yep.
what you're talking about there fits in very well with progress prevents regress. I know that sounds a little bit heady, but what it means is better quality gear reduces maintenance, better customers improve bottom line hourly rates, and you need to be always looking to improve or you end up going backwards.
Yeah. That stuff is true, but it only applies to the people that want to actually get better.
Yeah.
So one of these things that I've just keep hearing about lately is just this lifestyle business.
Yeah.
And I understand it. It's great. You can be there for your children or you can be, there for this and that. And I recently went on my own rant on my own podcast about, sometimes you go through tough times.
Yep.
And sometimes when you're running that lifestyle type of business, you're not always really leaving a lot of room for error.
I heard that rant and I called you and I'm like, Ben, are you okay?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm hoping people didn't take it too much the wrong way. It's not anything like, we're all alive and we're all well. It's just that,
Yeah.
yeah. But, I think a lot of the times when you give advice, or if it's Catch Pro, or if it's TBL, or Mow and Grow, whoever it is,
Yeah.
a lot of the times your main aim is to help people actually grow something and
Yeah.
make the most money that they can possibly make and be the best that you can be, not make the most money you can and do the least amount of work possible. Like
So
I understand how attractive that sounds. Like, yeah, let's get rich off doing nothing, but it's not really realistic, is it?
I've done I think I'd have to go back and check my numbers now. I'm going to be making it up. Let's say I've done 150 interviews, and that means probably about 140 people I've talked to. Right? There's a lot of those people who are doing it for lifestyle purposes. So they want to be able to work less days a week, or they want to be able to do before school, after school pickup, that sort of thing. They want to go to soccer games. They want to be able to take time off to go for a holiday. And lifestyle business means they can choose to say to their customers, I'm going to be away for a week, or I'm going to only be here between certain hours. And that works for them. What I'm talking about with progress prevents regress is that if you take that lifestyle business and you go, okay, let's just keep on doing the same thing we're doing over and over again, it actually shrinks. You lose customers here and there. You need to be looking for more customers, and you need to be looking for customers that are a little bit better, because if you just stay the same, then when I started and I declared $20,000 income and like personal income, and I'm like, I need to improve. Like lifestyle business or not, I need to improve. So I'm like, I've got to increase my prices a little bit. I've got to get a few more customers to get to where I need to be. But even then, the amount of increase in cost of living at the moment, everybody's needed to look at the CPI and go, well, if I'm not increasing my prices a little bit, I'm going backwards. And I've said that to my one recently. I looked at it and I was like, all right, I've got to put it up by the CPI. And accountants don't like that. They're like, no way, we're not going to let you put the price up. And I'm like, well, look at it this way. If I don't put my price up by at least the CPI, then I put less money in the bank by the time I pay my expenses. So I go backwards.
Yeah, and it's so easy to go backwards in any type of business. So yeah, look, I agree with you, but I still think it's always going to come down. I know what you're saying. Even if you're running that lifestyle business, you still need to be, looking ahead, trying to get better. I think sometimes the point of what I'm really trying to say is that these lifestyle businesses, that's not what they're in it for. They're not really looking. And I do want to sort of point out to your audience as well that I have absolutely no issue with someone running a lifestyle business.
Yeah, me too.
I've done it before in stages of my life. When my twins were born, I got rid of a lot of my workers and I became a solo operator again, so that I could, sometimes I was going out at 4:00 in the morning. Lucky that they were born in summer.
Yeah.
And then I could get back and I could, feed these babies and get some more sleep, go out. And, so I've done the same thing. So I want to make sure that, people that are running lifestyle businesses, they don't think that I'm calling them, unsuccessful or whatever.
Yeah.
I think what I have a lot of trouble with, and maybe I can name some names in this instance.
Yep.
Paul Luck, for example, gives a lot of advice in LMCA about, you know what, I can show you how to run the perfect business with this, this, and this, and this, and this. But it's a lifestyle business.
Yeah.
No one cares. I mean, it matters to you if you say, hey, are you the guy that wants to get home every day at 1:00? Are you the guy who wants to drive around in a shitty van? Are you the guy that wants to do this, this, and this? Well, then do exactly what I say. That's fine.
Yeah.
But
I'm hoping to interview Paul soon. Hey.
Yeah, I think it'd be an interesting interview. And actually, it's funny. Someone actually gave me shit because they thought that I was giving him too much praise and going too easy on him, either in a Facebook thread or on a podcast. But I don't even know the guy, so I don't have.
Yeah.
I don't. It's not like I hate him or I love him or anything like that. I'm just commenting on a couple of things that he has written.
I've had people ask me to interview Paul Luck, and I know, Paul, you're listening. This is for you. I told people, I said, well, find me a way to get in contact with Paul, because if I reach out to him via LMCA, he won't respond. And good old Mark Lattaway, He's like, I really want you to interview Paul Luck. And I said, well, Mark, your mission is to get me the phone number. And true to his word, Mark come back with a phone number for me. And so I called Paul. First couple of times he didn't answer. And then I think it was the second or third time he
He was
answered the
probably
phone.
having a nap. Or I don't know, maybe he was fixing his Toro 30-inch or something. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, so when he actually answered the phone, I was like, hey, Paul, I need to get you in the dungeon, mate. And initially he was like, oh, nah, too busy, don't want to do it. And I was like, well, let's line it up for winter. And he's like, yeah, okay, no worries. And I told him that it was Mark Ladaway that had been chasing me to get it. And Paul was like, you know what, I listened to the interview with Mark Ladaway and he and I are very similar. So there's one for you.
Yeah, look, I think, as I mentioned, I think he'd be a good interview. And I think if you're, new in the business, or even if you've had a business for a while, let's say that you have been trying to grow and you have been, just going in a certain direction, and maybe you get to a point, maybe you're a little bit older and you want to run that perfect business where you don't need to always be looking to the future or anything like that, then that's where I think he has a fantastic, that's where I think he has fantastic advice.
Yep.
But does it really apply to someone who, is really looking to build something for the future? And that all changes for everyone as well.
Yeah. So I think the idea of progress prevents regress will look very different for Paul Luck to what it looks for Urban Turf, Dale.
Yeah, I mean, even if you just, like, if you look at Catch Pro, for example, if you're not making more than what you did the previous month, that's just a huge failure. And if you do that 2 months in a row, you might have one more month to correct it before you actually start seeing some really bad things happen. So, and it's obviously, sales is completely different to mowing, like you can, in the mowing industry, I know when I was in the mowing industry and I thought I was going backwards, I felt because I was doing my work with my hands, it was really easy to just find some work and do it and earn some money.
Yep.
Sales is like, well, you can't make people buy anything. So,
Yeah.
You
and if you're not
come up with
making sure your product's in front of people on a daily basis, then you're not going to find new customers either.
Yeah, it's very stressful. And, I think probably in my case, I don't ever look at the good days or good months and sit there and hold on to that too long. I'm like, yeah, we crushed it and we did this and we did that.
Yeah.
And then, once it hits midnight on the website, on your Shopify analytics, you're onto a whole, it's a whole new statistic line, and it's a new day of sales, and it's maybe I'm too hard on myself with that.
You are a very driven person, Ben. So for anybody talking about the lifestyle business, even though you've done that, like the amount of time I've talked to you, I'm like, no, you are such a driven person. You focus on progress every day.
Yep.
So let's move on to the next topic.
Sure.
This one, again, I hope this is divisive. I hope I get a reaction from you. Don't be a jack of all trades, but still diversify so that you can survive through the seasons.
Yeah. Well, a jack of all trades, I always reckon that's just a difficult way to run a business, but it is a very useful and good skill to be able to do so many different things. I always reckon the easiest way to grow business and to, obtain and sustain and all this stuff is to kind of specialize in something.
Yep.
And it's good because you can always attract new people to that one thing.
Yeah.
Now you have to be good at it. I want to make sure, like, if you say that, we are the hedge masters or we specialize in hedge trimming, you've got to be good at it. All right. So, but sometimes you can get a little sneaky, and you can say like, we're the best at this, and it could be just something that you're really interested in doing, and
Yep.
that you want to do more of.
Yeah. Well, I've said that to people on a regular basis. It's like, if you are doing jobs that you hate doing, then go and do a job for free, even if you need to, but go and find a job that is the right kind of job you want to do more of, specialize in that, and plaster that all over your social media and your website and everywhere so that people see that you're the hedge king, right? And when name your business, name it Hedge Trimming King, and focus on that so that people, when they're looking for what you do, that is what you do. Even though you might do a lot of lawns and a little bit of hedge trimming, you're going to end up finding more hedge trimming customers because all your marketing material says that you're the hedge king.
Yeah, and so many lawn mowing businesses just don't offer, gardening or
Yep.
like, I actually had someone call me the other day. I got an ad on Yellow Pages that I cannot get rid of. It's 10 years old.
Yeah.
The business went through 3 different name changes. Anyway, it's just in my local suburbs.
Yeah.
And I said it was an elderly lady, and I said, "Oh, I would have thought at this time of year, you'd be able to get someone. They wanted some plants planted and a yard clean up." And
Yeah.
she said, "Oh, I've got a mowing guy, but he just won't do it. We got to look for someone who'll do this part." And I thought, I was so close. It's just that none of this affects me these days, but I felt like saying, fire that dude and just get someone who'll, be able to
Yeah.
provide the services that you need.
That is such a common experience, though. I've been asked to trim hedges and do gardening jobs, and I'm like, you've already got a mowing person. They're like, yeah, he only does mowing. He refuses to do anything else. It's such a common experience.
Yeah, and look, I picked up that much work because of it. I couldn't even believe in the body corporate sector there was
Yeah.
that many businesses that just refused, whether they refused hand weeding or they refused mulching or whatever it is. And I was like,
Yeah.
man, are you serious? Like, if you're getting into this part of this field, then you certainly don't need to be a jack of all trades, but you need to be open to be able to, run the business.
And I guess that's where my recommendation comes from. The number 4 in the top 5 advice is, if somebody asks you to hang a door, sorry, I don't do that. If
No,
somebody
and I
asks
think
you
it's
to,
important, Gaz. Sorry, I'm going to cut you off, mate. I think it's really important that people don't take on tasks that they either don't feel confident or just seriously don't know. That's how you end up on like a current affair and stuff, eh?
yeah, that's
Like
it.
someone says, "Oh, can you do a bit of concreting here?" And then it just turns into a mess.
Yeah. I mean, you can do this if you want. You can have a Jim's mowing franchise and a quick curb franchise and a Jim's cleaning franchise and half a dozen other ones as well, and have employees out there doing all the work for you. But if you are a single operator and you're doing quick curb one day, mowing another day, cleaning another day, and handyman jobs another day, you're spreading yourself really thin and having to spend a lot more money on tools and insurance and all the bits and pieces. And then you got to
Oh,
go back and forth between home and the job because you're just changing over different types of jobs in between each job. So that's what I
years
mean. Really don't do that.
years ago when I worked with Shorey, and this is a long time ago now. He before he became the big time landscaper that he is now. And look, maybe sometimes you have to go through these steps, right? And sometimes we
Yeah,
all know you have to fail and you have to, do some of
for
this
sure.
stuff. But I think the point of listening or obtaining advice is so that you can actually just minimize the amount of mistakes that you're making.
Yeah.
But, same thing. He had a maintenance division, which, I was running.
Yeah.
And, he had a crew that was doing the odd landscaping jobs here or there. The amount of equipment that dude needed, vehicles, trailers, he still, we needed multiple whippersnippers on each rig, whether you were, doing the garden cleanups or if you were doing the maintenance. So many just crossover. And man, we were unloading tools every morning, and people were fighting over tools. No, I need this. I need this. I've got a hedge today.
Yeah.
And it was just a mess.
Yeah. And it's hard to work in that environment.
And it wasn't until he could, but when he finally made the decision, you know what, my heart's not in maintenance. I'm a landscaper. I love creating.
Yep.
This is what I want to do. And, he sold the maintenance to me. And,
Yeah.
I think I got almost all of the maintenance equipment and everything. And
Yeah.
I know he still went through other stages, throughout that. I kind of separated away, so I don't know everything about it.
Yeah.
But it immediately just cleaned up a whole part of his, headaches. Because,
made it easier for him to focus on what he's good at.
yeah. And, I imagine some of the guys in the US that have to do like the snow cleanups and stuff, I know it's a little bit different because it's so seasonal. But, even the amount of equipment that they need to have and change over and,
Yeah.
Um,
So that brings us to the last tip for the day. And we've already touched on this, but gravitate towards those jobs that bring you joy. And joy is often represented by ka-ching dollar signs, right? So not always, but if you really enjoy a particular type of work, or you're going, I really want to do higher dollar work or whatever it is, go back to what I was saying before. If you publish all your marketing, your social media, your website, all those things to focus on that type of work, and continue to refine your business, progress instead of regress, so that you end up with more of the jobs you enjoy and less of the jobs you don't enjoy. And that way, if it's lifestyle or if it's to make millions of dollars, you're going to enjoy it a whole lot more if you don't have those jobs that make you want to vomit.
yeah. And I mean, I think everyone goes through a stage where, they become bored or not as passionate or, whatever the case may be. You take BJ right now from TBL. Right now, like he's doing a lot of subcontracting.
Yeah.
And it actually works out based over volumes. I don't actually know all of the prices that he's getting.
Yeah.
But he's actually probably the best way that I can say it without like hurting my mate is by saying that he's probably not able to get the amount that he would if he was going to mow 2 or 3 acres per hour.
Yeah.
He's getting a little bit less, but it works out over volumes, and he's happy. Like he's earning money and he's happy, and he we just went through such a brutal summer in Brisbane. It rained almost every day up until right now that we're speaking, and the days were brutal. Like we had folks from interstate coming up to meet us, and they're like, we want to go home. We don't want to be here anymore. It's hot. There's flies on me. Like all of that. Their shirts were like business people that were like, what am I going to do with my shirt? It's wet.
Lovely.
And BJ was working in those conditions, and he is so happy.
I've been in Brisbane when it's humid like that, and I'm glad to say I didn't stay.
I just always think to myself, like I haven't been a big traveler, but I always think to myself, like, what's it like when you go another 7 or 8 hours up north? Like I couldn't imagine being any worse, and it's so much worse up there.
Yeah, I've spent a little bit of time up around Cairns. I've been up to the tip before, up to Cape York, and so I certainly can appreciate the humidity up there. It gets pretty rough.
And I talk to people up there all the time, and they don't make it out to be nothing. They're like, oh yeah, man, it's hot.
While it is pretty rough up there, Brisbane is its own special little hothouse.
Yeah, I don't know why.
But the guys up there, they probably have higher annual rainfall, but they still have a dry season.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That
It's just that bloody intense humidity that, like, you know, it's one thing to be hot when you're mowing during the day. That's all well and good.
Yeah.
But when it gets to like 7 o'clock at night and you still feel like you're frying, like you just can't, you can't get cold,
Yep.
especially if you jump in a pool and it does nothing, that's when it gets crazy.
Yeah, and I think that
What was the
comes
original
back to
question that you asked?
gravitate towards the jobs that bring you joy.
Yes. And look, it's important. It's not always doable. I think it's something that you progress toward to. I don't know that you can just click your fingers and be like, hey, I want to do this.
Yeah,
That's where we go back to, some of our other topics where I think you have to be driven. You have to be looking to always want to be succeeding and growing and getting better,
yeah,
because that is going to open up doors, to this happiness that we're talking about.
yeah, for sure.
Sometimes you get lucky and you just, kind of something happens and it's like, wow, this is a great opportunity that I've stumbled across and I'm really
Yeah,
happy right now. And I think that's great.
yep,
It's just that you can't rely on that. You really need to be, if you're in this industry and you're not happy, you need to at least have goals,
to
achievable
get there.
goals to work your way to an initial goal.
Yeah,
Um, and I think you also have to, have that vision of like, even if guys, even if you're really happy, like right now, and you say to yourself, am I going to be happy in 5 years? Am I going to be happy in 10 years? Um, so many times when business wasn't going maybe my way, and this is before I had children,
yeah,
when I was just cruising and surfing and, sometimes drinking and things like that,
yep,
there was always a part of me and I was like, how am I ever going to provide for a family? Like, I didn't think I could do it mowing. I had enough money for me,
yeah,
like I had a car and I could go out and I could buy some things here and there. But so many times I actually just kind of laid in bed and was like, how am I actually going to feed young people? And how am I actually going to like have a wife and stuff?
yeah.
And, those things are not relevant to everyone, but some parts of that may become relevant at some point in your life.
You've touched on a topic that I'm very passionate about here, and it comes down to how do you know if you're making the right money? So you touched on it with BJ doing the subcontracting jobs, the massive big acres of parkland. And you're touching on it with, how do you provide for a family? How do you do different things? Come back to hourly rate or day rate or monthly rate. If you look at an average lawn care run, you go, okay, can you do $100,000 turnover in a year? Break that down and go, okay, how much do I need to do per month to do that? And I'm going to say you can well and truly exceed $100,000 turnover as an individual solo business. Easy. But if you look at it from that point of view, you start going, okay, if you're doing jobs like BJ, and I'm doing large jobs too, so I get it. You can take a lower hourly rate, and sometimes you might take a lower hourly rate just so that you can get the job that you know you're going to enjoy. But if you look at it and you're okay, if I take a large job where it's a lot of acres, but I'm doing a lower hourly rate, you might find that you're actually earning better money than if you're doing a lot of small jobs at a really high hourly rate.
Well, that point is particularly true if your diary's not filled out. So, there's a lot of people will say like, oh, I can make X amount of doing just X amount of money just doing one-offs or irregular types of work. And like, yes, that's true. Like, if you're doing a day rate and your day rate is like $600 to $800 and you're working at one place for the day, well, if you were going out and mowing 15 lawns at X amount, you might be able
Yeah,
to make $980 or $1,080 or
yeah,
whatever it is. That is true. it's whether or not you can do that day in and day out and actually run it properly.
Yeah, and it's if you're doing a large job, then you know that that's still going to be there tomorrow, even if it rains. You know, it's still going to be there the next day. If you are doing a lot of small jobs and you get a really wet day, you pack up and you're home. You don't make any money that day. If you get into 10 o'clock in the morning and you break a belt, you might be out for the rest of the day by the time you get that belt sorted out. And then you start learning, oh, well, I'll keep a spare belt in the trailer. But you get what I'm saying? Like those things that are unexpected that happen mean that you don't make the same amount of money every day. You might make a really good day where you're doing over $1,000, and then the next day you might do $300, and then the next day you might do $600 again.
Yeah, and that's fine if a year or a couple of years down the track you can get those lower days up, that average up.
Yeah.
Then it's still great to do.
Yep.
But man, I'm telling you now, like when we had our villages, it was set money. It was like X amount of thousands of dollars per week. That's it.
Yep.
And I used to have people that I know who like, I can make more than that just mowing residential lawns. And it's like, yeah, okay, fair enough. But just, man, you wouldn't believe the amount of times that I used to roll in there, especially winter. Now, we hustled, like we worked our asses off. We made this place look beautiful, but you don't have to do it all year round. But you wouldn't believe how many times like Rusty and one of the other workers, DJ and that, I'd roll in winter, especially when I started Catch Pro. And they're like, oh, all right, clean the hedges up. Let's do this. And I'd be like, oh, you just want to just hang out and have a coffee? And we just chilled for like an hour. And we're all getting paid the same amount. Yeah. Now, some people might even say that, that conflicts with what I say about always getting better and everything, because, you've got a ceiling and you only have to work within that ceiling.
Yeah.
But that was only one part of my business. Like we had a few contracts like that, and we did all of your solo runs and everything as well.
Well, I guess the other side of that is you can keep on chasing more large contracts, just the same as you can keep on chasing more residential jobs. If you're running a business where you've got employees like you were doing, and you've got 5 employees working in a village, then you know that the money's there to pay them every day. If you've got those 5 employees doing residential jobs and you have a good day and a bad day, you know that there's going to be days where the money doesn't come in, and you've got to average it out and hope that the average is good enough, which is why you need to make better money on those smaller jobs so that you can keep on paying them.
I know this is probably getting a little bit further away from what we're actually discussing, but like I know my situation by the time I left the industry cutting, you talk about solo operators who, they might be making 5,000 a week turnover now or whatever. Yeah. Like I know for me, because a lot's changed in 5 years. I mean, I've only been out of it for about 2 years, but really for about 5 years, that's how long we've had Catch Pro. Actually, this is the 6th year.
Yeah.
But that's how long I didn't focus on anything.
Yep.
But I know, like, by the time I kind of left the industry, I could wake up on a Monday, and not do a single. I did not have to pick up a single tool at all.
Yeah.
And on that Friday afternoon, like Ben Van de Giesen was making like $3,000 for the week.
Yeah.
Without not like I was doing paperwork and I was organizing and things like that, but like I didn't have to cut a single blade of grass or pick up a single weed or do anything if I didn't want to.
Yeah.
And that was just a result of having, okay, we got this contract here, we got that contract there, and Rusty's going to be out mowing 40 acres this day, and that person's going to be doing that cluster of jobs over there. Yep. So it's sort of one of those things where, like, it's not good to put a ceiling on it, but you don't want to settle.
Yeah.
But I mean, look, sometimes you just got to work within your capabilities.
Well, I think sometimes the ceiling will choose you, so to speak, because you know that you can chase more work, but at the expense of your own mental health or your own physical health. So if you reach a point where you're going, okay, I've got 4 employees and I've got enough work to keep them busy. If I chase more work, I've got to grow my business. I've got to be spending more time as a manager and less time on the tools. That's a choice you make. Or you sit there and go, okay, I can't invest in that because I can't take on more management work. I need to spend more time on the tools. Then you don't grow. But one of the things you mentioned there, and this is a good spot to finish the podcast, you talk about doing businesses that do $2,500 to $3,000 a week and some doing $5,000 a week, right? If you take that number, $2,500 a week, and a solo person can do that very easily, that's about $10,000 a month, which means it's about $120,000 a year. I make a habit now of asking the people I interview those numbers. And I hear numbers ranging from $50,000 or $60,000 a year through to, I think, close to $300,000 a year for a solo guy. So
Yeah, crazy. And, it goes to show, like it goes to show how successful you can be. And it also goes to show how much room there really is to grow.
Yeah, definitely.
Like you can, man, there's a lot of money that can be made.
Yep.
But there is, also that fantastic lifestyle of, if it's a really cold morning, like I'm going to stay in bed till 8 o'clock.
Well,
or, the kids, my wife works a second job. I have to pick my kids up at 3 o'clock. All of that stuff is fine.
I probably won't interview somebody who just does it one day a week on a weekend just to earn beer money. But there's plenty of people out there that are happy with that too.
Absolutely. There's, and it's the same as what I'm doing now. And I think I may have even said it recently that I remember a point in time with Catch Pro where like I just wanted to sell one grass catcher a week. That's all I wanted to sell. One grass catcher a week.
Yeah.
And, now that makes me sick to my stomach that I ever thought that. Because number one, I just would not be doing, like I would be probably still mowing as well, which was fine and worked fantastic for me for a long time. The only reason why I stopped is it just made no sense anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess it's just the same thing as, you now, like you've got this podcast that you're doing and you're like, yeah, I put out a show or, but you even probably think to yourself, like, I wish I could do a show every day and get the same viewership and get this and get that.
Yeah, for sure. So I do sit there thinking, you know what, I could put out more content. I could help more people.
Thank you for listening to Aussie Lawn Stars. Please remember to rate and review the show on the Apple Podcasts app or the player you use. Exciting new shows are released every Monday. Make sure you follow or subscribe to hear the next episode.